Listen. So with theaters back in full swing with all of their weekly releases, it's going to be interesting to see how streamers pivot and handle all of these productions. I know that theatrical windows have been shortened to 45 days from going to theaters to screens. In some cases, it's even 17. So with studios being behind a lot of these services, I'm going to be keeping my eye to see how they juggle it all, because there's always going to be a new streamer on the horizon. We also got word that Warner Bros. Merged with Discovery in order to keep up with Netflix, but couldn't afford a better name. And all the Quibi stuff is now over on Roku, who's gotten more views in 2 weeks than the app did the entire time that it was alive. Plus, they're free. So I guess the YouTube model does work, Katzenberg. But looking back at the 2 months since our last watch list video, I'm going to be breaking down my top 5 streaming channels that I think are worth getting, and all the stuff on them that I think is worth watching. Let me explain. Now, for the months of May and June, easily Netflix was at the top because they are just stacked. They've also taken a page out of TikTok and have a short clips tab on their mobile app that they added where you just flick through a bunch of bits that are taken from their originals instead of, sitting there and auto-playing trailers as you scroll, which just leads me again to push streamers. Pick up more short films. In terms of the movies, they had a trio of mystery thrillers, with Oxygen being the best out of them in my opinion. It follows Melanie Laurent in her version of Buried as she wakes up in this cryogenic chamber, having to figure out how she got there. Netflix also had plenty of zombie content from Snyder's first movie in his Army of the Dead franchise that's going to be followed up by a prequel and an animated series. They had the continuation of Black Summer, which is that Z Nation spinoff, and they also had Elite Season 4, which it's not a zombie series, but it was dead on arrival because they just keep doing the same thing. Netflix picked up the rights for the Sailor Moon double feature where they do Sailor Moon things. The biographical Blue Miracle about a struggling orphanage in Mexico was decent. They just, for whatever reason, all spoke English there. And then there was Kevin Hart's Fatherhood, the dramedy based on a real-life single dad who unexpectedly has to raise his daughter and change diapers everywhere he goes, that I thought was pretty heartfelt, even though it seems Hart's changed how he felt.
What if a boy wanted to come to school dressed in a skirt?
Then that's that boy's business. It's the 21st century.
That said, my top movies from Netflix would include the slow burn Sundance Polish thriller Primetime, which is about a New Year's Eve broadcast that gets held hostage when a man comes in demanding to deliver a message on TV. The ending isn't going to satisfy everyone, I know that, but it is another incredible performance from Bartos in a movie that's subtly looking back at the country and its media during that time.
Jestem.
Another even slower burn would be The Disciple, which premiered at Venice. It follows a vocalist on his pursuit to master his craft, and I've seen a lot of people pitch this as being the Indian Whiplash, and well, that's a pretty big feat to go at. I do think it does an excellent job studying the creative process and the turmoil that comes with it as you're trying to achieve that. Plus, it's produced by Theo Coron.
It's not that civilization creates culture. Culture is the one that creates civilization.
Now watch me pivot over to Sony Animations and the new movie that they have releasing on Netflix with that whole 2021 streaming deal that they've got, and it's Wish Dragon, a movie that a lot of people are upset whenever it gets compared to Aladdin, but the creator himself has referenced it that way, so I'm gonna just go with the filmmaker. Mainly it's adapted for a modern China, seeing the change of the landscape as a contrast with the main character looking back on his life as he encounters this mystical being that can grant him all of his life's desires. It's a good story about change. I thought it was cute, and I was surprised by the humor that they had in this thing, and it's one that's already greenlit a sequel.
Yes, it's real.
A couple of standout docs for me were Amy Tan's unintended memoir, which I actually caught at Sundance, and it follows the author's journey into her career, but it also takes a really good look at her relationship with her mom, which I feel is going to be one of the strongest points and one of the things that people will connect with the most in that movie. There was also Sisters on Track, which premiered at Tribeca, about young athletes in New York that are trying to make it on the come up. Fantastic documentary, but easily the biggest stream on the site for me was Bo Burnham's special, Inside, the one that had every video essays becoming super meta, but just copying the same thing Bo Burnham was doing. It's a fantastic breakdown on internet culture and the pressures of the modern age by a man who started his career from his bedroom on early YouTube, and now he's back to his roots just with that Netflix budget. Personally, it's not really a comedy act in my opinion. I don't find it that hilarious, and I don't think he's topped his show Zach Stone in terms of humor, but I do think it has some of the best compositions that he's written for his specials. I don't know if the gimmick of staying inside was real or not, especially in a year where people didn't have the option to, go into their pool house. But for a show that's being introspective, I was hoping for a little more reflections on his early videos and how he wouldn't do half of the rhymes that he did back then, instead of, the bits where he's talking about having an Aladdin costume in his closet. Overall, it is one where I'm catching new things on every rewatch. He is one of the best creatives out there, in my opinion, that I've been following for over a decade. And while I know that everyone loves the critiques that it has on others, those are the songs everyone gravitates towards, I think it serves more as a mirror than people think.
An open window.
Then Netflix still had all of these shows that I'll probably be making longer videos for, but to break them down, there was a season 2 of Love, Death, and Robots. We were still figuring out who killed Sarah, again with their part 2. And there was a bunch of anime, since Netflix knows which demographic is willing to do the most binging. Ryan O'Connell was able to wrap up his series special based on his experiences living with cerebral palsy.
It's super inspiring to see you give it your all, despite your limitations.
Ew. Inspiration porn.
Is that what that is?
And Dane Drops went from reviewing fast food in his car to Netflix paying him to drive around America in his own show, Fresh, Fried, and Crispy, where he tries beaver, rattlesnake, and bull testes. It's just funny to see him review things in a way that isn't like the Food Network type way, because you'll have a chef sitting there not knowing whether he's getting insulted or not, and it feels like at any moment they're just gonna squabble up.
Do you need my help? I need you to get on out of my way so I can finish up this dish for you.
Hey, if it's struggling, you tell me.
I am.
But, I might fight you.
That's okay. I'll sit there and take the hits somewhere else.
Okay.
This Is Pop was also a great episodic look into the history of the genre, from the influence of Boys to Men and how they had all this stuff on boy bands, to how Sweden created some of the biggest hits, and practically how autotune changed everything.
Did I fuck up music?
There's still a bunch of other shows that I wasn't even able to catch, but let me know if any of these should be on my radar, what you think I should add to my watch list, or one that I should even make a full video on. Unless, it's one of those where you invest 10 hours on a $200 million show that just ends up getting canceled. HBO Max comes in at my number 2 streaming service, and also now has 2 different tier prices. They have a $9.99 one that has you sit through ads and doesn't even give you the same day premieres that they've been boasting, and then the regular $14.99, which is the one I think you should get if you want the service. Both, for whatever reason, went through a glitch this past month where you couldn't fast forward or rewind. Like, it was this big nuisance, and I think they fixed it, but damn. Nonetheless, their stuff still delivers. On the movie side, having theatrical films at your streaming leisure just feels like a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I would have never imagined in all my years of making reviews. Like, I've rewatched or played certain set pieces from In the Heights over and over again. People could go home and just close their eyes in fear of the new Conjuring and keep them closed for the new Jolie, because I don't think anybody caught that. But HBO Max also had a bunch of good pickups for their streaming premiere, so you don't even have to spend that $19.99 on these VODs or have your internet service knock on your door. And for the people who've been waiting for it, they finally got the Friends reunion, which I think it hits the same way for fans who go to the Central Park pop-ups and go, yeah, cool. The shows, though, is where they really delivered. The teen dramedy Generation, which I had mentioned in our April list, has a part 2 that I didn't even know was coming out. Rose Matafel, who got the Taika cosign and was in our April rec Baby Done, has her own series now on HBO called Starstruck, about a woman just trying to get by until she has a one-night stand with a famous actor. And it's even picked up for season 2.
I'm not a fan, so.
Well, it sounds like you were a fan.
Of his day.
Betty is also back for season 2, proving that the movement of adapting movies into series can actually be done well. If HBO is doing it, it follows the girls of Skate Kitchen and their day-to-day lives in New York City as they build their friendship, and I think they're able to get at the heart of the characters in a much better way in the series than they were with the movie, so here's hoping that the Parasite adaptation and the Shiva Baby series will also be good. Hacks continues to have Jean Smart dominate all the WB stuff that she touches. She plays a stand-up comedian who's forced to work with an up-and-coming writer who can't get a gig since she's been canceled, as Jean's also trying to not get her own Vegas show canceled. I think their dynamics under this mentorship are absolutely hilarious. It gets dark when it needs to. Not to be corny, but it gets into the power of comedy as well, and it's overall one of the best shows under the Max label that I think HBO has produced, in my opinion.
Oh, come on. Plenty of people can still hate you.
At the top of the list, though, is the miniseries Mayor of Easttown, which is a crime mystery about a groggy detective just trying to solve this small-town case. It's your regular story, just set in Pennsylvania and various Wawas. It is a slow build-up, but I think it's one that pays off in multiple episodes with some really great performances all around, even for characters that you just dislike from the get-go. Now, Disney's still on their premiere rollout, which I was surprised to see that they were keeping for Black Widow, and that they're even going to Disney Plus The Rock, but I can't really count Cruella as a release on the service since, it did come out this month, but that's an extra $30 charge. They do, however, release them 3 months later for free, if you're paying the subscription, like they did with Raya. So if you're interested in Raya, it's there. But Luca and the Pixar picks in general aren't getting the same push, which sucks because, while as a viewer, I'm not complaining that I don't have to pay extra, I really did enjoy Luca, and I just think it's a shame that to Disney, they're considering all the Pixar stuff as Disney Plus original movies. Like, these are things that should be in theaters on the biggest screens, not something that you're using to boost your streaming service. On the Hulu side, they did have a duo of comedies that I think are decent streamits, perfect place to watch them, like the Brian Tyree Henry's The Outside Story, where he plays a video editor who makes in memoriams, but then gets locked outside of his building. It does have more misses than hits in my opinion, but hey, it's streaming. Natalie Ramirez had the first of her directorial features of just this year with Plan B, that sees two best friends putting their relationship to the test as they travel for a Plan B pill. Not as great as Booksmart, but I'd say it's better than Netflix's Moxie. The Pickups, though, is where they really stood out. One of the best thrillers of last year was Beast Clawing at Straws, and I highly, highly recommend that over everything here. They also got Willy's Wonderland that had Nick Cage fighting animatronics at a demented Chuck E. Cheese, which you can now stream. Don't have to waste the $19.99. But they also had two of the best docs from last year, streaming right now for you to watch. Two mature dramas about couples dealing with dementia, anchored by some really great performances. Two relationship dramas with trippy settings, like the Sundance Select Wander Darkly, that has a spouse revisiting her past after an accident, but not knowing what is a memory or not. And then the dystopian fest favorite Little Fish, where memories are actually being erased due to a virus. I know that that's a lot of memory loss themes, but hey, I haven't forgotten any of these movies when I saw them at festivals, and they've stuck with me. Just like the ending of Wild Mountain Time, a movie that I cannot recommend, but damn were people buzzing about that ending, and it is so out of left field. I can guarantee you there's no way you're even going to guess where it goes.
I'll freeze my eggs.
You should freeze your whole body if you're waiting for that one.
In terms of the series, Marvel has completely phased over to streaming, it seems, and I know that they had the premiere of Loki, but the one I'm going to recommend is MODOK, the Marvel Comics villain that's adapted into a Robot Chicken-style comedy, which I know may not be for everyone if you're not into that humor, but I think it had more hits than misses. Patton Oswalt is perfect as the voice. There's going to be a season 2, even though I think that the ending is the best place to end it. There was also plenty of other season 2s, like Lil Dicky coming back with his show Dave, where he's playing a version of himself, striving to become the greatest rapper of all time, with what I would consider one of the most decentest comedies out right now. Love Victor season 2, I don't think was as good as the first, but it continues to follow the drama around Victor and his friends, with all of the changes coming their way, but damn, I hated that cliffhanger. High School Musical, the series, will get a full LME as they cover Beauty and the Beast this season, while the show covers the Dramarama that gave us one of the year's biggest albums. But the best out there is Holy Moly 3D 2D Season 3, the Steph Curry produced extreme mini golf competition that's my go-to dumb fun show. Like, this is just a reality show, a competition show that where the obstacles are hilarious, the hosts are just goofy, and it doesn't face the same sticky issues that other game shows do. And when all else fails, you know that it's Disney, and they have plenty of Star Wars content. Now, for a good run, the only content Apple was consistent with was the new yoga sessions with Molly, but Apple TV Plus is finally coming through. There's the Stephen King adaptation, Lissy's Story, that stars movie stars as we see them pivot more to movies, and it's directed by Pablo Larraín, who's a fantastic director. Trying is on its second season, and it doesn't fail to evoke every spectrum of emotion as we follow a couple who wants to have a baby but can't. Mosquito Coast has wrapped, and the first couple of episodes I thought have been decent. Justin Theroux's character uproots his family and runs away to Latin America after the government comes after him, and it's actually an adaptation of his uncle's book.
My nephew. Sometimes he calls himself Justin Theroux. It's a French name, it's Theroux.
But my favorite right now has easily been Mystic Quest, which y'all were actually the ones who put me onto it and told me that I should not be missing it, even comparing it to Silicon Valley, and I don't know if it's up there yet, but hey, it's extremely fun. It really understands the industry that it's talking about, how quickly that it transitions, the characters balance each other well, and there's this flashback episode in season 1 that was just incredible. To wrap up my top 5, there's Prime, which, if I'm being honest, just barely made the cut, because they literally had no originals in the entire month of June except Bosch Season 7. Like, when the hell did Bosch get on season 7? They did have in May the series Panic, which is a YA book adaptation about a high school that hosts this annual game of dares where the cash prize is awarded to the student who doesn't panic. It stars Jack Nicholson's son, and that's the only interesting thing I thought I would note, that it stars Jack Nicholson's son. There was also Solos, a series that stars a bunch of high-profile actors doing these little vignettes that are mildly interesting, but sadly, I just think the show is overshadowed by a lot of cringy dialogue. But really, the reason Prime even makes the cut here at the number 5 spot is because of Barry Jenkins' new miniseries, The Underground Railroad. It's an expansive journey that follows Cora as she escapes the Deep South while being chased. It should have been released weekly, in my opinion, because that way we would have, actually sat with the episodes. It should have had better marketing, but I swear that they better not skimp on that Emmys push, because several casts and crew deserve recognition for the show.
What's their name?
To wrap up the other services, Shudder had a good amount and it almost made the top 5. Just, none of them were higher than a Rent It for me, but I still think that it's dope for horror fans. They picked up the Fantasia Select Fried Barry, which stars a longtime film extra who's finally getting to be the lead, Barry, who's the biggest douchebag you can think of, but then he gets robbed by aliens who enter his body and then take it for a joyride as they push this movie to a hard R. There's a short film on it on YouTube if you wanted to get a taste of how bonkers this is, but I think these people put it best when they said that it is practically under the skin combined with a beach bum. George A. Romero's lost film from 1972, The Amusement Park, was finally discovered in 2017, and Shudder was able to pick up the rights. Pretty much he was commissioned back in the day to do a sort of PSA about how society treats the elderly, and then was decommissioned because they found it to be too depressing. It follows an elderly man as he wanders around an amusement park that's meant to represent the world, clashing against authorities, a terrible health system, thieves, swindlers, the elite, all of that within these walls, and it's pretty clear what the message is supposed to be.
I'll see you in the park someday.
They also had Psycho Gorman, a 90s rated R family horror that's kind of like, if you remember Under Wraps and Billy and Mandy, it's not as great as those, but it's pretty much about a pair of siblings who resurrect an alien overlord who they have full control of, and it's just extremely goofy. Way too goofy for me. It comes from the director of The Void and Leprechaun Returns, so you know he's going to be big on makeup and effects because he's worked in that department well. But, if you're interested in Power Rangers camp villains meeting Dungeons and Dragons, then, hey, this one's for you.
Go over there and wait for us to come back in the morning.
You will suffer an eternity for this.
Bye.
Paramount Plus is still there. They had the new Wahlberg/Antoine Fuqua directed movie called Infinite about a man who has lived multiple lives, and no one cared about that. It's the ugly Rugrats reboot that got them the most attention, which, yeah, damn, that is so ugly. Along with the iCarly comeback that, is the only thing that's really pushing this platform because they haven't really done much with it. Showtime picked up the Z-Way series, which I think is kind of funny, but failed at living up to its name when streaming the hug match that was Mayweather v. Paul. Stars got The Climb and The Kid Detective, which I think are both solid movies, and also premiered the Blind Spotting TV show, because again, every movie's getting the series treatment. And finally, I canceled my Epix account since they finally put Saint Maud elsewhere, proving that A24's rollout wasn't just an epic failure when it came to this movie, but that they're really dropping the ball when it comes to releasing Blu-rays for their movies, as they dwindle them more and more. Because as convenient as streaming is, in my opinion, physical media will always be better. Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. What is your favorite streaming service? What do you recommend to me? All of these picks, hopefully I'm able to put another must-watch on your radar, but if there's anything that I missed, anything that you're looking forward to, definitely let me know down in the comments. The last 3 that I would recommend is, if you do have Criterion, go check out Hooligan Sparrow. I think that comes from a documentarian who's just killing it in the game right now. They need to protect her at all costs. And for the free stuff, we got Hoopla. Go watch The Dissident. There is even more updates for this. This is a movie, a documentary I've been talking about for a bit. But just be careful when you watch it. And then also Tubi, another free service. I would recommend God of the Piano and one of my favorite thrillers of last year, White Lie. If you have any other recommendations or any other services that I should be paying for to be just watching all the stuff that they have on there, let me know. Keep me up to date as I try to keep you up to date. But until next time, just keep watching movies. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and keep streaming.